Dave Trabert is here from the Kansas Policy Institute on 95.7 FM. We're streaming, as always, on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Or as you're getting ready this morning at home, just tell your Google Home or your Alexa device to play KCMO Talk Radio, and there we are. All right, Dave, tell me what's going on here with the Kansas Education Funding Task Force. They met for the first time last week, and as always seems to be the case on this issue, there's what? Going to be a request for more money? Is that where we're at right now?
Yeah, good morning, Pete. A little background. The current formula expires in 2027. So they formed a task force, the legislature did, to look at the formula and decide, try to get recommendations on whether anything should change, the structure of it. Not surprisingly, the system-focused appointees on the task force came in not really interested in looking at the components, just more money. It's just everything that was pushed, it was pushed toward more money. You have others, like the commission right now is chaired by State Senator Renee Erickson. She and a few others on the committee are focusing on how do we reallocate money to encourage or incentivize better student outcomes. And so you have that clear divide. One side is looking at students, the other is looking at money for the system.
So then how do you look at this from the standpoint of what the state legislature needs to do about this? Because this becomes a fight, it seems like, every time it comes up. Some people just say the system needs more money. And for a lot of us, we sit here and we say, first off, you've got teachers who a lot of us would agree are underpaid. You've got an administration that is just bloated and completely out of control and overpaid. But the unions seem to side always with just putting more money in the system, even though I think the unions, Dave, aren't looking out for the actual teachers who are paying a lot of the dues here. So what's the answer? How do you solve it?
Yeah, well, the legislature has to decide, and the state school board. There's two parties here that need to make a decision. Right now, you have a state school board that is basically doing nothing, allowing the Department of Education to continue focusing on system issues, ignoring multiple state laws. One, we'll start with the law requires the system to have an accreditation process based on academic improvement. They don't do that. They're not interested in doing that. They won't even be honest about the achievement crisis we have. It's pretty clear that since this Kansans Can process was put in place in 2015, that there's been a steady decline. Whether you look at state assessments, NAEP, or ACT, they all show declines. Student-focused people would be saying, wait a minute, something's not working here the way we intended. Let's revisit this. The focus has to be on improving outcomes, not pushing social emotional learning, not trying to pretend that graduation rates mean anything. But they won't do anything right now. That means the legislature has to step in, but there's also the majority of legislators, and this is both parties, are afraid of raising a ruckus because they're more concerned about getting reelected than helping kids get the education they deserve. So, it's interesting. One of the things that, I guess one of the highlights of the meeting on the second day was when Senator Erickson noted that she had been approached by multiple superintendents who had gone to a superintendent's meeting, and they were told that they should start setting money aside to join Schools for Fair Funding and get ready for another lawsuit. They were also told that the legislature is looking at not funding really small districts. We have a lot of districts in Kansas we have some with less than 100 kids. Both of those are not true. I mean, the legislature is not looking at anything like that. It's fear-mongering. And now, Senator Erickson didn't say who was saying that, but if it's at a superintendent's meeting, it's probably somebody from the Department of Education. That's the fear-mongering that's going on. The focus is all on, as it always has been with the Department of Education, give us what we want or we're going to go sue you. And we're not concerned about the kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a damn shame. Dave Trabert is here with the Kansas Policy Institute on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM and streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Tell me, you guys wrote about this at the Sentinel. Shawnee Mission shortchanges students on services in the name of equity. We know that's a word that obviously has a lot of juice right now. So what the heck is going on at Shawnee Mission? Of course, one of the most esteemed school districts in the entire state of Kansas. And this specifically ties into what's happening at Shawnee Mission East.
Well, the student newspaper, the Harbinger, I think appropriately called out the school board for focusing on equity. There's and it goes to donations that the system is getting. The donations going to schools that feed into Shawnee Mission East are like 3 times more than what's going into all the other feeder systems combined. And traditionally, the money given to the system, if it goes into the Shawnee Mission East system, that's where the money gets spent. Well, the board decided that wasn't fair to the other school systems, and so they formed a task force on the board to examine how to better equitably distribute the service provided with the money. And and again, we get back to it's all about the system and not the kids. The board president last year, Mary Sinclair, admitted that the donations were providing for critical services, she said, that weren't funded by the legislature. Well, the legislature doesn't fund services. They give you money and the school district decides how to spend it. But she said these are critical services. So right there, you have a school board president admitting that the kids aren't getting something they need. The district knows about it while they're sitting on right now about $80 million in cash reserves. They have, as you said, administrative bloat. If they were just staff with managers at the same ratio they had 10 years ago, they'd be saving about $5 million on managers, more than enough money to provide those services. They have all these opportunities at hand, but they're focused on some concept of equity that has nothing to do with getting kids the education they deserve.
This is wild. You just said it there. The Shawnee Mission School District is sitting on $85 million in cash reserves. And back in 2019, that number was $38 million. That's a $50 million increase in cash reserves in half a decade for the Shawnee Mission School District. I mean, that's property tax money that's taken right out of people's pockets that is just sitting in cash reserves for the school district. That's insane. I got a minute, Dave, but how should the taxpayer interpret that number?
Well, what it means is, and most of it, probably not all, but most of it is state and local tax dollars that were given to the schools to educate kids and weren't spent. They were just put in the bank. For whatever reason, it doesn't matter. They admit the kids need more services, and they are choosing to do something else with the money. And, I want to bring this back to what we talked about a minute ago. It's probably, we've always assumed that it's only a matter of time before there's another school lawsuit. But the dynamics have shifted a little bit. All this just very blatant refusal to focus on kids. Now, that my question is, who's going to sue who first? It could be the schools suing taxpayers again, or it could be somebody suing the schools for not giving kids the education they're supposed to get.
It's going to be a fascinating lawsuit to follow if it does happen. Tough to prove, but it'll be interesting, Dave. And if it happens, I know you guys are going to be on it there. We appreciate the time.
Thanks, Pete.
All right, Dave Trabert with the Kansas Policy Institute on KCMO Talk Radio.